Share. They are like this. Why? I'm sorry, what were you saying? We lost connection there. It is a big deal, you guys. Even a digital interview. I was trying so hard and I got one tiny smile, but that makes it just uncomfortable, you know? You have the feeling like, all right, this person doesn't want to talk to me. Hey you, and welcome back to a new episode of the Career Powerplay Podcast. Thank you so much for the good responses I've received on the last episode. For the topic of the episode, I was brainstorming and thinking like, what's the topic that most people still need good and honest advice on? And it just came to me, doing digital interviews. I know a lot of you might believe that you know exactly what you're doing and that you don't need help with it. Yet I still see so many bad digital interviews that I have to talk about this. So welcome to the Career Powerplay Podcast, the career podcast where I give you no fluff, no BS, but real and tangible advice. Let's dive in.
Dare to dream, take action, don't have fear, become the best version of you. Let's create your dream career.
So many of you know that I own my career coaching business, Fierce Careers, where I teach other women how to market themselves and landing career opportunities that they dream about. But I still work as a recruiter on the side. So basically I'm seeing two sides of this, but what I'm seeing a lot of the time is the struggle with digital interviews. There hasn't been one interview over the past few months that was without anything that could have gone better. So I want today to be a full-on, no fluff, no BS advice on how to handle those digital interviews and make them a smashing success. So are you a fan of digital interviews or not? What an amazing thing, right? Digital interviews. No need to go out of your own home, but just chilling at home in your chair doing an interview. Do you see the danger there? Are you someone who gets ready like it can actually be your next career step, which it can be? Or are you someone that doesn't stress about it and sees just as a relaxed chat about your work? Because the danger is that you come across as uninterested and that can make you unqualified. You're not in active mode, but in reactive mode. Just here answering some questions. No, stop. So what I see a lot in digital interviews are people that like have their headphones on, which is all good, you know, no stress about that because that's what you need. You need good headphones, earphones, if you have noise around you, and a good microphone. That's what you need. So that's also what I will get into later in this episode. But what I see a lot when I start doing digital interviews with a candidate is that, let me get in my chair, they are like this. Why? If you are someone that's just hanging around like this, it's not really that the other person is going to be like, wow, this is an amazing candidate. They're so interested in the role. They so show me their enthusiasm, their passion for the role, and no. So I just wanted to be clear on that. All right, number one. I know that this might sound super obvious for many of you, but apparently it isn't because I still see it every day. And that's to dress appropriately. Make sure that you have good Wi-Fi connection, that you have a clean background. Not like I have right now. I have to be honest and real about that. But I cannot change it because I am using my iMac for the very first time, by the way, for this. I have a completely new, like since the beginning of this week, so I am super excited. But the things that you see back there, it's not my stuff. So I'm in my office. I rent a small office that you might have seen on Instagram or something. But there is an office right behind me, and that is his mess. So I was thinking about, taking this recording to like a meeting room that we have in here. But then I would have to drag my whole iMac to the meeting room. So I was like, well, no, just explain why it is there. But those are the things that you want to make sure that it's not in the background when you're doing an interview, because it's just distracting, and that's not what you want, right? That you have a clean background and that you've tested your camera and mic. Too often I lose 5 minutes of the interview just because a camera or mic is not working, and that is a missed out opportunity. Too many times someone is seriously lounging in their chair instead of sitting straight, like I just showed you. Too many times someone is wearing a weird shirt that's not appropriate for an interview, and a messy background can tell a lot about the person. And in this case, it is telling a lot about the person that is renting the office behind me and not about me. All right, let's keep that in mind. So just try to arrange it that you're sitting against the wall and that everything in your house is on the other side of the computer. And please check your Wi-Fi. It can be so annoying that someone's connection is interrupting when you're in the middle of a conversation, and that you cannot hear what the other person is saying. It is really annoying. You have to ask countless of times, sorry, what were you saying? We lost connection there. These things can really annoy the person on the other end, and you want the other person to be amazed by you and not annoyed. So please fix these things. You can test it out beforehand by sending a test invite to a family member or a friend. How it looks, everything's working. And also do some research on how people dress that work at that company, so you can have a positive first impression by dressing the same instead of that weird, I don't know, Simpsons t-shirt that you have laying around in your closet. If they wear, I don't really see this a lot anymore, but if they wear like a suit and tie, then wear a suit and tie. Like I mentioned, I don't see this a lot anymore. So most of the time it is enough if you just have something like a nice polo or something, something that isn't really that comfortable, like a Simpsons t-shirt or a football t-shirt. I see that a lot. And a polo just shows, all right, you came prepared. And it's not that a polo, if you're wearing a polo t-shirt, that the other person will be super impressed, but it is that if you are wearing a t-shirt like Simpsons football, whatever, the other person will be, you just lose points with that, because it shows that you haven't given it a lot of thought and that you haven't prepared for the interview, and that you just took something out of your closet, put it on, and just do the interview like it's nothing. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it can be your very next career step. It is a big deal, you guys, even a digital interview. And that's why it is dangerous, because as you do digital interviews from the comfort of your own home, it feels not important. But it is so important. Please keep that in mind. Number 2, do your best to make it a comfortable conversation. Smile sometimes, ask questions. Remember that it's important that you make the interview a flowing conversation and not a question-answer interview. There's nothing bad about getting to know the person and chat about someone's hobby for a few minutes. If you start the interview like that, it will be a lot more relaxed along the way. So just a few days ago, I had an interview with someone, and he was so serious. And it really was, I was like at a point that I was trying so hard to get like a slight smile out of that person. I was trying so hard, and I got one tiny smile, but that makes it just uncomfortable. You have the feeling like, all right, this person doesn't want to talk to me. That is what you're giving. If you don't smile sometimes, that's the feeling that you give the other person. All right, they don't really want to talk to me. So that is so important. And just talk a little with that person. When it becomes a question interview, so the recruiter or just the other person is asking you a question and you're just giving like one sentence answers, that is getting uncomfortable because the other person has to keep asking and asking and asking. And again, that also gives the other person the feeling that you don't want to talk to them because you're just, and that's the example that I gave at the beginning of the episode, just here answering some questions. That is the feeling that you give the other person when you're just like giving those one sentence answers. And then you are silent and waiting for the next question. It is a very boring conversation. And it's not the conversation that the other person will remember. And that is so important as an ambitious job seeker, that if you are applying or if you have spoken to someone in your network and this is a referral or something, you want to show them how much you want it. And you want this interview to be the interview that they remember. If they have had like 10 interviews, then you want to be the interview that is at least in the top 3. Because otherwise you can just forget it. 10 interviews. If you're giving like that boring question-answer interview, you'll be probably somewhere between the 8 and 10. That's not what you want, right? Number 3, show your interest. Pretty similar. Ask questions. Tell how excited you are about the role. Tell why you would be a great match for that role. Yes, it is important to show that you're relaxed, but hey, there can also be such a thing as too relaxed. This is still a job interview. Sit up straight, smile, show your excitement. Tell about your achievements in your work experience. Show them what you can do and how you can make this role a success. And one thing I always teach my clients, I teach in my content everywhere, is that show off your achievements and quantify them. Give them statistics. Some find it really hard to make it a statistic and give it a number, because a lot of people think that if you have to give a statistic or a number, it has to be something about money. And it doesn't. You can also just tell them how big the team was that you were in. If it was a project, how many people worked on the project? How long did you work on the project? How many steps were there in the project? What was the timeline? And really think about, when you are talking about your achievements and you find it hard to even think of an achievement, don't be scared, because you have an achievement, I promise you. A little trick for that is to reverse engineer. And what I mean by that is think about your last employer and what happened while you were working there. Maybe they landed a huge client. And what was your part in landing that client? And you had a part. Believe me, you had a part. You really want to start at the finish line and then get back, analyze everything that happened, and then get to your job, your work, what did you do? And that is your achievement. And you can tell that, like, I did XYZ and that made the company land a huge client, or whatever the company achieved. And that's how you want to phrase that. Number 4, ask about the process. What happens after the interview? Do they have all the information they need from you? Are there any doubts about anything? Just ask them straight up. Nothing is more respected than the candidate asking for this kind of information, because that shows that you're serious about this opportunity. As a recruiter, I truly, truly love it when a candidate asks me, do you have any questions? Do you miss any information? Do you have doubts about anything? Are there things that are important for this role that you're not so sure about that I actually can do that or have that experience? And in that way, you can really tackle, sometimes you can even make a no a yes by asking those questions. Because you can have the feeling like, all right, yeah, I told everything. They have all the important information. But on the other side, maybe what is really important to the company hasn't been discussed, which would be a little weird, but you never know. But it can also be as simple as, maybe you speak Italian, just naming something. You speak Italian and the company that you're going to work for or the company that you're interviewing at just landed an Italian client. That can be such an important part of why they would be really interested in hiring you, because you can help a lot with that. Just naming something, just an example, but you get the picture. So normally you wouldn't really say, I speak Italian. Why would you say that? What would be the reason to tell that you speak Italian if you're doing a job interview in English? It might come up, it might not. But if it doesn't come up, and it might be something that is really like a huge plus for a candidate, then you just made it to the top 3, my friend. Number 5, turn off your notifications. Put your phone away and put your laptop on Do Not Disturb. You don't want to see an email coming in when you're talking to someone about your possible future, right? You don't want to see a commercial email on what is on sale the next week when you are having a conversation about the next step in your career. You don't want to get distracted by those things. First, it is not really comfortable for you because, you're telling a story, you see that email and you lose track on your whole story and what you were going to say and the important details of that in your story. And by the way, storytelling is a huge part of accomplishing a great interview. But if you get an email, you lose track, you just can't remember what you were going to say and how you were going to say it. And also, the person on the other side of the interview can see when you're distracted. They can see it at your eyes, your facial expressions, they see it. So also, a huge important tip, set everything on Do Not Disturb and put it back on when your interview is done. So as I mentioned, I just want to emphasize this. The danger of digital interviews can be that it's too comfortable because you're doing it from home. But be careful with this because you don't want it to seem as if you don't care. Treat this as a proper interview and also know that your interview is being discussed. We live in a small world and people talk. So give it your all. If you take away 3 things from this episode, I want you to remember that you do the necessary prep work before an interview, make it a flowing conversation, and make sure that you show them that you're interested in this opportunity. Make sure they know that. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you won't miss the next episode. And remember, power isn't given, babe. It's played. See you next week.